Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Sasquatch Watch Radio with your host, Billy Willard, and the Blog Squatcher. Strap in, hold on tight, get ready, because it is about to go down.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another show of Sasquatch Watch Radio. Today is Monday, September 22nd, 2008. We have a wonderful guest with us tonight, I'm sure as many of you know. And also I want to take this opportunity to welcome our great co-host, D.B. Donlin. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Billy. How's it going with you?
It's going pretty good, actually. It was a very nice day out for the first day of autumn. What do you think?
Yeah, so it was actually 80 degrees, which was actually, not very autumn-like at all, as far as I was concerned.
Well, the mornings are finally getting a little cool, but,
Yeah.
But
I just typed something up there. I said, this is getting a little easier. Look at me typing and talking at the same time. So I just typed on the chat, and I was talking at the same time.
Goodness, he's getting professional, folks. He's getting
That's
professional.
Right.
That's
I'm
pretty
catching
good.
the hang of it.
It's awesome. So, DB, we have made you kind of our official news guy. What kind of news do you have for us today before we bring our guest on?
Well, I do have a couple of items from the news. Nothing, really earth-shaking. Of course, how often do you get an earth-shaking news item? Not very often. But the first thing is, you remember, I think back on the first show, I talked about a couple who had seen a Bigfoot cross the road in British Columbia, and then there was a car behind them, and they had also seen it. It turns out that in that same area, at that same general time, I don't think it's the same day, but the same general time frame, someone else had a Bigfoot sighting, and the same website put up a post about it, so it's courtesy of HBBC Research, and this is what they had to say. A very credible lady witnessed the Sasquatch. This would have been around the same time it was sighted here in Houston, and that's Houston, British Columbia, not Houston, Texas. It would have been near the end of July 2008. So, I was talking about how it was a really credible sighting because it was not just one couple in one car, but two couples in the car. And then, on a different night, someone else sees one unrelated to the first two. So I really think they've got a good situation there. I hope they can get something out of it, like a footprint cast or a call recorded or something. But even if they don't, just the sighting reports that they're getting seem credible, and they're kind of building up a good case for that area. So that's the first one. Number two, the BFRO is going to air a television program. They just announced, I found out about it earlier today. They might have announced it earlier, but I found out today when it came through my email alerts. They announced that they're going to have a television program starting next year, and they say it's about the work of the BFRO, and it will be shown on a Canadian television or on Canadian television through a broadcaster to be announced later. And they write about it on their website. No matter which Canadian broadcaster is selected, the series will undoubtedly be syndicated in the U.S., England, and Australia, and filming will begin in spring of 2009. They further write the series is expected to go on for several seasons. There's no indication yet on when the series will begin to appear on television. But anyway, we've already got, what have we got? We've got Monster Quest, which is often about Bigfoot, not always. We've got Destination Truth, which is, sometimes about Bigfoot. Now we're going to have the BFRO on, which will always be about Bigfoot. Bigfoot is suddenly hot on television.
It's hot. It's hot. Well, that's it may be a good thing. It's getting more folks, getting their attention turned to this, and I'm sure it can have a positive effect. At the same time, it can have a negative effect. So
yeah, you never know. But I'll be looking forward to at least seeing how they present it, what it looks like, and what kind of stuff they put on it. It could be really interesting. But you never know.
Sure could. Well, DB, thanks for the news. So that catches everybody up with some of the recent stuff that's going on. And now what we want to do is we want to welcome our guest. Our guest is from Texas, and we want to welcome him here. Luke Gross is our guest. How are you doing tonight, Luke?
I'm doing fine, thanks, Billy. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. We've wanted you to come on so we can talk to you about some things that you got going on, so thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
We've worked up some questions. DB, if you don't mind, I'll ask him the first one.
Go right ahead.
Tell us what you have got going on in Texas right now.
Well, and actually, I've received 2 reports last week of a young man who had a visual sighting of one of these creatures up in further north Texas. It's not really northeast Texas. It's up close to the Oklahoma border. What had taken place was the young man was out scouting for hogs, and he heard something move, and he noticed something peering out from behind a tree at him. And he mentioned that it was swaying back and forth, and it was making a wooting sound. And he was terrified when he seen it. He ran back to his house. So that's an investigation that we will be doing here within probably the next week or so, heading up that direction. And we have another sighting.
Very
another
good.
report.
Now, have you had other sightings in that same general area?
Yes, yeah. It's fairly close to the Sulphur River. And the Sulphur River is an incredible area, an incredible habitat for these creatures. And the second sighting took place here in Wood County, actually. There was a gentleman that had seen something walking off, something tall and hairy, that's how he described it, with something in his hand that looked like a calf's head, a small calf's head. Well, he found the body and confirmed that the head was missing. So this is another report that we'll be following up here later on within the next week or so. But there's a lot of interesting things going on here. As many know, October and November are really the prime times, peak times here in the state of Texas, as the weather starts to cool off, and it seems that these creatures have a tendency to start moving more about. And I think that's due to the frequency of humans going into these areas, hunters, so on and so forth. And I think they're moving out of the way, getting ready for hunters to go into the woods.
All right. Did I see a question in the chat earlier there, DB?
If you did, I missed it. Let me scroll back up here.
Yeah, see if you can find it. I thought I saw a question. I thought it was in, I don't remember what color it was in. I think it might have been just in black. Oh, yeah, it was Hollywood Tom. Do you see it?
What town in Texas was this near? That's Hollywood Tom. You must know what town.
It was near Alba, Texas.
Okay. Alba, Texas.
Alba, Texas. As a matter of fact, it's the town I live in.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh.
Convenient.
Yeah, it is. It is convenient. Well, that's the second report. That's where that took place. Close to where I live. I kind of make it a habit to nose around town and talk to a lot of the older people in the town. They have a lot of interesting stories to tell you, and I've managed to gather many reports from this, just from certain individuals in this small rural town. And it's actually a hotbed of activities, considering it's approximately probably 6 miles from the Sabine River, which is one of their main travel routes through the area.
Right. All right. Well, just so that folks know, if you're tuning in and you're actually not looking at the chat, you are still able to ask questions. You can do that by sending me an instant message. If you have Yahoo, our instant messenger is Sasquatch Watch Radio, or you can send an email to sasquatchwatchradio@yahoo.com. Just for those who may be listening and it's not in the chat. Otherwise, you can put a question in the chat, and it will open up the phone lines here at about half the hour, about 9:30, for folks to ask Luke questions. But what we want to do is kind of ask him some questions that we've prepared here. And DB, I'll let you take question number 2.
Okay, Luke. I was looking on your website, and I saw that you told about the sighting that you had in 1984. I wondered if you could tell the listeners what happened in 1984 and how that got you motivated to, start researching this full time.
Excuse me. Yeah, that was my first sighting, and that took place in 1984. And I wasn't by myself, as a matter of fact. My mom was sitting right next to me. She seen it too. It was about, what had happened was that my family and I had come out from Dallas. We were living in Dallas, Texas at the time, and we would make a trip out, just about every weekend to my mother's house. And this is one of our weekend trips, and it was getting kind of late. I guess it was just a little bit before 10 p.m., and my wife had decided to go put my daughter down to bed in the back room, and my mom and I decided to stay up, and we was watching TV, and it was fairly warm outside. It was November, but she had the front door open, and which is a mobile home. There's a glass door and then the main door. She was sitting in her recliner, and we were just, having small chit-chat and watching a little TV, and I was sitting on the floor next to her, and all of a sudden she just kind of reaches down and taps me, and she says, "You see that?" And at first, she kind of pointed towards the door. At first, I didn't see anything. Then, all of a sudden, something turns and steps in front of the door and stops. It was a full frontal view of something that I'd never seen before. Needless to say, I had scooted as fast as I could back towards the wall, which is about 3 feet behind me, and hit the wall. It scared me so bad. My mom, she kind of sat there and put her hand up over her mouth. She was, she's an older lady, and she gasped, and it stood there and kind of swayed a little bit, and then turned to the right and took one step off the porch and was gone. I'm sitting there just totally confused. I'm an avid outdoorsman, hunter, fisherman, and I had all the animals and all the wildlife in this area categorized and put down in my little book, that this is what's here, and but when you see something like this, like what I saw, you have to rethink that. I'm saying the whole time, this is not supposed to be here. This isn't supposed to be here. What was it? And I didn't have any clue. It took me about 5 minutes to get the courage up just to walk to the front door to look outside. And there were some strange and odd things going on previously to that. Things that I had no clue was even related to Bigfoot. They had just moved the home onto the property, and it seems that it was put very close to one of their travel routes because there was mud clods being thrown in her car, and this is before the sighting even took place. And my mom would sit there and say, "Well, somebody's throwing mud clods at the car," and I would go out there and look, and sure enough, there were these big mud clods on the ground, and I would look, and there was huge fingers and fingerprints in these mud clods where they'd been balled up and made into a mud clod, but the fingerprints were still there. I had no idea. I just told my mom, I said, "Man, whoever's throwing these mud clods, I hate these guys. This guy's huge." And it was being thrown from across the road from her house. But that was my first sighting there. And from after I took measurements and all this, but it was about 7.5 feet tall. couldn't see its head because its head was above the door.
Wow.
It totally blocked out. It totally blocked out anything, being able to view anything from behind it. It just blocked out the door totally. But
So
from
this
then
is
on,
before you.
pardon
I'm
me?
sorry. I was just going to say this is before you were actually an active researcher. So I guess you probably didn't measure the fingers in the clods.
Oh no,
Get a
no,
measurement.
no.
Yeah.
I kept that story quiet for a long time. I
Uh-huh.
told the family members and stuff, but even some of my family members laughed at me about it. And, yeah, right, you saw this, you saw that, and it was something I decided just to keep quiet about until I believe it was 1997 when I got on the internet, and I just did a little internet search on the internet and found out that people were actually seeing these creatures, and I wasn't the only one that had seen them. So I got in contact with another group, and they asked if they could come out and interview me and investigate. And I said, yeah, that's fine. And that's when I started Bigfoot research. Was in 1997. So a long time span had went by before I even mentioned it to anybody.
I see. I do have one more question. You said you had a full frontal view, so I'm wondering, did you get a chance to have a view of Bigfoot's package?
No. It was too much hair, and the hair was blotchy in some spots. It wasn't very well groomed. Let's put it that way. I did get to see the hand when it turned to step off the porch. I got a good view of the palm of the left hand, and it was pretty interesting. The hand was at least 13 inches in length long. But needless to say, it was scary. It was scary. But
yeah, I would imagine. It was up on your front porch. Did you say it was handling the door handle?
No.
Or
no.
it didn't do that?
No. The thing about it was, at that point in time, my mom had 15 cats or so, and she would feed all of her cats on the front porch. And where it was standing before it turned was where all her cat food was at, on the front porch. And it was dry fish flavored cat food mixed with table scraps is what it was. I took that into account and actually used that for research as bait after I started researching.
Okay, so do you still get results with cat food? Because that's the first time I've heard of that, somebody using cat food.
Yes, actually I do. I've been using the same type of cat food, or dry fish flavored cat food, with a combination of other foods, but not to. I don't like introducing foods that aren't indigenous to areas, because I don't want them to depend on any items brought to them. That can't be found in the wild. And fish flavored cat food is not there in the wild, but there is fish. That's the only thing that. But I will use wild plums, wild dewberries for bait also, deer scent, and honey works well also.
Yeah. Well, we've had some farmers, well, not actually farmers, people who have cows and horses who complain that they're losing a lot of the cow and horse feed out of the, they have these big silos that drop the food down automatically so the farmer doesn't have to go out there and put it out all the time. And they would complain that they're running low on them. So I think that they might snag food that they wouldn't have, had any familiarity with, before they ran across humans.
Yeah.
But yeah, that list you gave is good, and since that's the first I've heard of the fish flavored cat food, I'm going to use that now. I'm going to try that out at our research area, see if we can get something to come and nibble on it.
Yeah, you will use it in conjunction with other things too. It's not just the cat food alone. Like I say, I'll use black plums, which is not found in the wild, but wild plums are. I'll mix it with the wild plums and honey and the cat food, and make just like a mush out of it, and then place it in a white with knee-high stocking. Don't make it a camouflage, but make something that can be seen. That's what I use. if you're in an active area.
Great information for everybody there. Thank you. All right, Billy, tag team, it's your turn.
Well, I'm kind of curious now. With the cat food, do you take it out of the can or do you leave it in the can?
Oh, no. This is dried cat food.
Okay, so it's out of a box.
Yeah, out of a box or out of a bag, yes.
But do you leave the box or do you dump it into something out of the box?
No, what I'll do is I'll put everything in a bowl and mix it together. The plums, the honey, and then I'll put it in the knee-high stocking.
Gotcha. I was just curious because I was wondering if you left the box, if they actually take the box, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's interesting to know. Let's see. Question number 3 we had. You mentioned on your website that we actually kind of covered that, didn't we? About your other sightings.
Yeah.
Your 3 other sightings. So I'll skip right on over here to the next one. Now we know you've been researching now for 10 years. So in that 10 years of research, what is the coolest or oddest report that you've looked into?
Do you really want to know?
Yes. We love these things.
Yes. Well, I do have one. It's not told very much, and actually it was a report that was investigated by myself and several other researchers at the time. Of course, being the curious type that I am, now this is totally ridiculous. This is absolutely a ridiculous report. But I am curious, and I like to make sure that I'm not missing something. But this was actually about a woman had reported having seen these creatures coming down out of a mountain. And at first I'm questioning her, well, how do you know what it is? And how do you know if it's even a Bigfoot or not? Well, she says, well, I can see them. Their penises are glowing blue.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, yes, I'm serious.
There we go.
I'm serious. And like I said, I am the curious type, and I want to find out everything I can. And I don't like leaving any leaves unturned or stone unturned. So I investigated a little further and did find that there were actually mushrooms growing in the area that glowed a blue color. They were called jack-o'-lantern mushrooms. I found this an interesting correlation. I was kind of curious if they were eating the mushrooms, or if maybe the woman was eating the mushrooms. But anyway, it was a big hoax. Actually, it was a bogus report, but that's the most ludicrous report I've ever received.
That's funny. It's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one. Before you go on, Luke, to something else, we had one question that came up here a little late that actually come in on the instant messenger. Dan down in Florida wanted to know what brand of cat food is it that you're using?
Well, any fish-flavored cat food.
Okay, so you're not using any particular brand? No.
If it's just sometimes they might be out of it, and I have to use another one.
Okay.
But no, it's just what is it?
No, they're not partial to Purina, and
no,
they don't care as long as. Okay,
no.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I've tried a lot of different things in the field, and that does work, used in conjunction with honey, and you can also burn honey, like bear hunters do. It's a very strong smell, and in reality, if you smell it burning, it will make you hungry. Believe it or not, I've had a lot of people tell me that, and I've experienced it myself. It's just a real sweet, pungent odor, but it does make you hungry when you smell it burning. And the smoke will drift off in the direction of the wind, and it goes forever. Has a very good coverage area.
That's a good one. I hadn't heard that before either. We're getting some good stuff out of you tonight, Luke. Thanks a million. Hey, Dad asked a good question. We should probably get this out. He wants to know what the website address is, what your website address is.
It is a web jam website, and I am not sitting at my computer right now, so I don't remember It is Northeast Texas Bigfoot Research. If you just do a web jam search for that, you will find it.
I'll tell you what, if you guys go ahead and chat, I'll run over and grab it and post it in here real quick.
All right.
So,
I got a couple more questions from some people. Hollywood Tom asked, have we done this before? Have you ever done research in the Tyler area?
In the Tyler area?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I have. There's an area out there close. It's the Tyler State Park. There was some reports that had come from there. And another report, this was years ago, come from along I-20, actually. And there was some research that had been done there by individuals. But I'm about 40 miles from Tyler, so anywhere in Smith County is open for research. Well, anywhere in Texas, or East Texas for that matter, is open for research. But yeah, there's some interesting things that's been going on over the years in that area, down towards Rusk County also.
Gotcha, good. I have another question from, I don't want to mess this up, it looks like MFD Fry Captain, and he wanted to know, have you changed your methods since you first started? Like, have you had to adapt your methods?
Excuse me. As a matter of fact, yes, I have. Over the years, when you first begin research, you're excited and you're in the field constantly, and you're gung-ho, and you say, I want to do everything the way I think it should be done. You want to try and use scientific methodology and so on and so forth. But over the years, sometimes you have a tendency to become involved too much with individuals or the Bigfoot research community. And I think sometimes, I know I did, I started sitting back on my laurels, so to speak, and became lazy. But in reality, scientific methodology is a must in Bigfoot research. I honestly feel that I don't think there's anyone that can, for instance, if I was a hardened skeptic, is there anybody that could prove to me that these creatures exist? Is there anybody that could prove to me that they exist without me having a sighting? And I think the answer would be no. Not without some kind of hard evidence and with scientific methodology being used. Without this, I believe we are, the research community as a whole is spinning their wheels. And in all honesty, I think that if people are finding things, they're not being shared. And I think it's time for people. I think it's time for people to start sharing information and become a united front. But I don't believe this will ever happen. But as far as my methods go, yes, scientific methodology is back on the table. If I haven't seen it, and if it hasn't been analyzed, then I cannot accept that as evidence. Even if it's a footprint, a tree break, or whatever, it has to be analyzed by somebody that is a scientist that is well-known or has an education, a PhD in any individual field that is needed. But without that, it can't be accepted because there's too much being said. I might make some people mad here, but there's too much been said, too many claims being made, and there's no evidence to back this up. And that includes myself. I've made some pretty bold statements and made some pretty bold claims, but I can't even back that up because I don't have the evidence that has been analyzed and documented properly, and it won't be accepted. It can't be accepted. So I believe scientific methodology is the way that it needs to go, and that's what I will be doing from here on out. And I think that's very important, very important.
I think it is too. I think a lot of us who like to do the research, we don't all come from a scientific background, and there are things that we could profit from learning from each other. I mean, there's a lot that I really don't know about doing scientific research, having been a liberal arts major my whole life. So, you know, I could learn some things. But as you say, it's hard to get people to share information in this field. It's darn hard.
It is very hard. I don't have a degree in anything. I'm a construction worker. But what needs to be done is there needs to be a way where we can get scientists into the field, to where they will be willing to come into the field and research. Okay, we have the areas. We know the areas. Those of us who have seen them know they exist. And some of us know where they're at. We know where their habitat is at. So to get a scientist into the area, I'm not talking somebody that's already been introduced to the research community, but I'm talking someone that is clueless about it, and bring them out there and let them look and let them learn for themselves and document everything. That way it would be accepted by the scientific community. And to me, but without that, we are spinning our wheels, and I am from the no-kill school, so taking a body is not an option for me. Taking a specimen is not an option. But there are ways it can be done now. The technology is out there. At this point in time, I'm working closely with several different people on something new, and it is in the works right now. I've just really become tired of seeing everything just kind of come to a standstill. Excuse me. And
no
a lot of people have gotten together, and we're now coming up with something new and fantastic. And I am more excited than I've ever been, and we'll bring that to life at a later date. But right now, it is in the works, and I think people should be aware that there are new things that are taking place right now, and it will happen soon. I promise.
All right. Sounds like we're about to go to a commercial.
When we come back, folks, we'll open up the phone line.
Come join us Saturday, September 27th for the 2008 Annual East Coast Bigfoot Conference held at Pitzer's Townhouse Restaurant at 101 South 5th Street in Jeannette, Pennsylvania from noon until 8 p.m. Doors will open at 11 a.m. General admission is $10. Speakers will include Diane Stocking of Florida, myself, Billy Willard of Virginia, Tom Lancaster of Virginia, Bob Chance of Maryland, William Dranginis of Virginia, and Eric Altman of Pennsylvania. There will also be an auction that will include autographed copies of well-known books by Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Dr. John Bindernagel, John Green, Chris Murphy, Thomas Steenberg, and more. And a lot more items will be on the table for auction. For more information about the conference, go to www.eastcoastbigfootconference.weebly.com. We hope to see you there.
Sorry about that, Luke. I
That's
actually
okay.
hit it by mistake. I was actually going to wait until you paused there, and then I was going to hit it, but I actually hit it by mistake. All right, folks, we're going to open the phone lines. I mean, we have some more questions, but as I promised, we needed to open the phone lines. We got 25 minutes left of the show. So if anyone who wants to call in and ask Luke a question, the call-in number is area code 347-237-5070. Again, it's 347-237-5070. So phone lines are open. Where were we?
Well, we were talking about a lot of interesting stuff, and one of those questions made me think of another one, and I wanted to know, Luke, if you have any theories on why we don't get the kind of evidence that would start a serious scientific investigation. We get stuff that teases us, like we'll get hair that comes back as unknown or primate, like human, but unknown, and that doesn't seem to be enough to bring them over. When are we going to get something that's better than that? I mean, I personally think a really good, clear picture from a game cam would probably do a lot to help us out. I mean, look at what happened with the not so clear camera images from Pennsylvania. So, what do you think is the reason they're not helping us out, and what do you think we'd have to get for them to come over? I know you're going to say the obvious thing would be a body, but aside from that, what do you think we could get that would bring them in?
Well, there's number one, we have nothing as far as evidence. We have nothing to compare any evidence that might be subjected or introduced. Nothing really to compare it to. So therefore, it is just an unknown, and I think everybody knows that. If it's an unknown, we can't say, well, it's a Bigfoot, but it's something that's unknown. But I believe that clear video footage, now with special effects the way they are nowadays, it might not be accepted. A game camera photo might be accepted, but there are other ways that it can be done. I think by starting with DNA, you have darts now that you can biopsy darts, and a lot of people are saying that we can't get close enough to one to use one of these DNA darts. Well, some might not be able to, but I've been close enough where I could get a shot off at one with a dart gun. I think that's where it needs to start. I think it needs to start at the base. I think going out and darting one or tranquilizing one is not the answer. You have to go in and establish and document everything. Considering I'm from the no-kill school, if you go out and tranquilize one, you're not going to know the proper dosage. You will have at least a 50% chance of killing the creature.
Right.
Tranquilizing it. Therefore, there are other ways. There are transmitter darts that are being worked on right now. The technology is here. Tracking devices. If you can first establish what they are, and that would be DNA. Is it human, hominid, or what, or whatever? Establish that first, and then you can make a close assumption on what the proper dosage should be to tranquilize one, and then place a tracking device on one. I do believe this can be done and learned that way, and then tranquilize one and place a tracking device on it and learn more that way. You don't need a body now. There's no need for it. But these things are all being worked on right now as we speak. So it's just, I think that the evidence will be there once the scientific community, if you can present DNA evidence, good, clean, uncontaminated DNA evidence, I think that will be the starting point. And a spokesperson, somebody who can talk to scientists and can speak well, would be a great start to, but we really don't have, it's just going to take a lot of time in order for this to take place. But I know that it is possible, and it can be done, and it probably will be done in just a matter of time. But getting the evidence that is needed will have to be taken by scientists.
Right.
I believe it will have to be done by scientists.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there.
We have a caller on the line. We have a caller from the area code 757. You're on the air with Sasquatch Watch Radio.
Hey, Billy, it's John.
Hey, John, how you doing?
I'm great. How's everybody tonight?
Everybody's good here. How about you, DB? I'm sure DB's fine.
I'm great. Good to hear from you, John.
Yeah, same. I look forward to meeting you. Hello?
He's actually not going to make it, JC.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
He's not.
It looks like, I mean, there's still a tiny chance that things could change, but right now it looks like I can't make it. But you have a question. I know you called in with a question.
Yes, I did. I hate to rehash something that we were all trying to get past, but I had a question for Luke about the happenings in Georgia last month, and this is the first chance I've had to talk to him about it. I heard through the grapevine that you had the same reaction that I did when the photos first surfaced of the whatever we want to call it that was in the freezer, and that was that the creature that I witnessed would not have even fit in that freezer. And I was wondering if that was really was what you had thought when you first saw it too.
And this will be all I say on the subject, is that what I've seen wouldn't have fit in the freezer. So I think it's best left at that. That's in the past.
Right.
And I think we've all learned something from it. But that's all I'll say.
Well, yeah. That's great. Okay, that's all I needed to. That's all I wanted to ask you. It's just the first chance I had to ask anybody about it. I didn't really want to rehash the situation or anything, and I apologize for it.
Hey, no problem. There is something that we can say about that, and that is that the world sat up and took notice. They thought, hey, if there might be a Bigfoot, we really want to know about it. So that tells us something. We do come up with some good evidence. They might just be listening. So we can at least take that from it.
And you are correct at saying that it has. I think it shook the research community up, and I know I have changed directions totally since that took place. And I think it may have done some good as far as getting people to wake up and say, okay, something needs to take place. We need to rethink things and try something new. I know it did for me, and it was actually. It turned out on a positive note for me. So, but
very cool.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. That's nice to hear. That's great. Okay, Billy, that's all the only question I had.
All right, thanks for calling in, JC.
Talk to you later.
All right, we have another caller on the line from the 817 area code. You're on the air with Sasquatch Watch Radio.
Hello, Billy. It's Bill.
Hey, Belle. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I just promised you I'd call in and say hi. Hello, Luke.
Hello, Belle. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Heard you had a nice time down at Lori's.
Yeah, it was a nice time. We got some work done. Did some cleanup work after Hurricane Ike decided to blow in and blow several trees over. So it was a nice time.
Well, that's good. I just said I'd call in and say hi. You basically answered all my questions, so I'll just go ahead and let somebody else ask questions. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Thanks, Bill.
Bye.
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 Bill told me she was going to call in. That was just sweet of you, Bill. Thanks for calling in. All right, DB.
Yes, sir.
I tell you what, we've had some interesting conversations here.
Oh yeah, we're not finished yet.
You guys have me on my toes listening to this. Let's see. Let's see here. I tell you what, won't you take question number 5, because I think I did the other one.
Well, we still have 2 questions from chat.
Okay.
Chat subscribers. One of them is from Wild Feed, and he wants to know what happened. I mean, how did the creatures react when you encountered them? Like, what kind of reactions did they have to you?
To me, it depends on. I've had 4 visual sightings, and one of the sightings there was actually 2 these creatures involved. My first sighting, of course, I was scared and it just turned and walked off the porch. My second sighting was of the 2, which were standing in front of a Highline right-of-way, or in a Highline right-of-way. One was a larger one, and then there was another one which was smaller. The larger one took off first, and the smaller one kind of stayed behind and looked at us as we made our way around this brush pile, and then it took off following the larger one. So that both of those left. My last sighting was a total, it was, let's say, it had no clue I was there. It was at night. There was a vapor light involved, and actually this sighting took place probably about 30 yards from where I had my first sighting at. I was leaving my mother's house and was chit-chatting on our front porch and walked around the house I had actually moved home onto the property where my mother was living. And I was starting to walk back home. And again, this was November, and my brother was living on the property also, and his small dog had actually walked over to my mom's, and it was following me as we was heading out, and all of a sudden I heard this swishing sound, and which is, I associate with these creatures. I've heard it on more than one occasion, and I stopped, and I'm saying, okay, I'm about to see one. Well, sure enough, it come walking from the west, walking east, down a fence line that's next to my mom's house under this vapor light outside. And it stopped and kind of looked one direction and looked the other and took off into the shadows. And I marked a spot on the tree where I'd seen it, and actually took a measurement. It measured 8.5 feet. But and there was no reaction, of course, because it didn't know I was watching it. And the small dog that was there actually had no response. It watched it walk down the fence row and just sat there as quiet as could be, didn't even bark. But as far as reactions go, I've had several different types of reactions, curious reactions, as far as them just coming close and staying in the tree line, not seeing you, or not seeing them, and then others have been what I would consider a little bit more aggressive, like roars, for instance. One of my encounters happened in 2006, where we were escorted out of the area we was researching. As a matter of fact, it was my second trip into the area, and we were roared at by something that had an incredible volume. You know, I can't say that it was a Bigfoot, okay, because I didn't see it, but I heard something I had never heard before. And if it was a Bigfoot, it certainly ripped trees up out of the ground as it was following us out, thrashing the trees. And we were a very long ways into the area, and we hiked out and made it back to our boat and managed to.
So he definitely gave you the message.
Oh, it gave us the message. It did not want us there. Whatever it was, it no, it didn't want us there. So, but you know, you have the aggressive behaviors, and then you have just the curious behaviors. So.
All right, we got another caller here real quick. Area code 617. You're on the air with Sasquatch Watch Radio.
Hey, Bill, Will. What's going on?
Bruce.
It is the Creature Seeker.
How are you doing there, Mr. Creature?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. It's been a great show. I had a question for Mr. Luke Gross.
All right.
Okay.
Did you ever feel that your life was in danger at any point in any one of your investigations? Is that something that someone who is serious about going out in the field and spending a lot of time out there, is that something they should be concerned about and make provisions for?
Well, I personally, what I do, like the encounter in 2006 I had with whatever it was, I was analyzing the situation the whole time. From the time I heard the roar, I was analyzing, because my youngest son was with me at the time. He was 12 years old, and there was a woman present, and we had one weapon between us. And after I heard the roar, I was analyzing the sound. I'm saying, okay, at what level of aggression was this? Of course, I should have known it was at peak level by the sound. But as far as feeling threatened, no. I didn't think my life was in danger. I've never felt my life was in danger by one. Of course, we're speaking about something that is wild. It's part of the wildlife in the area. So you never know. I've never personally felt threatened. Now it doesn't mean that if you go in and shoot one, and you're going to have to. I'm afraid you might have to deal with some other ones that are there from just because I know that they do move in. If there's one, there's usually more than one around. You'll find there's probably one or two more close by.
So you actually believe that they live in sort of these tight family groups?
From what I've been finding, yes. If the evidence I found is that of Bigfoot, if in what I'm finding, yes, I would believe so. The tracks that I've been finding, yes, most definitely. At least in the areas I'm researching. Now, you can't say that will be the fact in Washington State or in Ohio, because you have different geographical locations, different habitat. So it could vary from each area. In each area.
And are any of your investigations in the Big Thicket area?
Actually, no. I don't. I'm not in that area at all.
Several years back, I spent a weekend in Big Thicket, and it seemed like a place that would be a viable habitat for, anyone who didn't want to be found.
Oh yes. Yeah, definitely.
And I think there have been many reports of sightings in that area. I just didn't know if you had done any work there or if you just thought it was a bunch of hooey.
No. I do agree there are areas of riparian forest which go through the area, hardwood bottoms, and there are rivers that run through there. You have several in the area. It is an area that would be a good habitat, especially if you have the riparian forests that are in close conjunction with a big thicket, which it is. But what I'm finding that territories, not territories, I'll just say the ecosystems that have been used or possibly used by these creatures are they overlap. You might have one ecosystem that overlaps into another one. They will stay on the fringes of these two ecosystems, and I find that quite interesting.
Well, thanks very much, Luke. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. And Bill Will, great show as always, and I'll see you guys this weekend.
Thank you, Bruce.
Okay, thanks.
We have another caller from the 865 area code. You're on the air with Sasquatch Watch Radio.
Hey, Billy, it's Ron over here in East Tennessee.
Hey, Ron, how you doing, man?
Oh, not too bad. I only got listening to the program about halfway through. After watching some of the comments in the chat room and hearing Luke talk for a little while, what came to my mind was everybody keeps talking about a lack of evidence and this sort of business. And I catch some of these TV programs, cold case files and that sort of thing, and it always amazes me at how little evidence it takes to convict somebody of a major crime and send them to prison for the rest of their life. And I just curious about everybody else's opinion, more of a comment than a question, but there's plenty of evidence, in my opinion, there's plenty of evidence to convict a Bigfoot of a crime if you follow what I mean. You know,
right.
There's footprints with thermal ridges. They've got some DNA samples from blood or from hair. You know, it just seems like there's still so much skepticism, I guess.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Ron. I mean, that's a good point. But Luke is our guest. So what do you think about that, Luke?
Well, there's a lot of evidence out there, and you're correct. There's enough out there that you could convict and have a Bigfoot incarcerated, no doubt. But what we're dealing with here is the name, Bigfoot.
Right.
Once you mention the name or the word Bigfoot, immediate skepticism will arise. But with criminals, criminals, we have known criminals Okay, yeah, we have.
What never fails to amaze me, I didn't mean to cut you off, but what never fails to amaze me is that I would think that mainstream science would be totally willing to believe in it, since most believe in the theory of evolution. They would be able to jump right up and say, well, here's the missing link we've been looking for.
Yeah, but like
it doesn't really fit into the way they've designed that, though. They think that all these missing links should all be stone cold dead. So if they had to admit that there was one still alive, it would kind of mess things up for them. So I can see why they're not jumping up on that account.
Well, and I think that they've all been trained by other people with similar belief systems, so anything that doesn't fit into their box is probably not going to be accepted.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a very good point. Each science has a belief system that they may not cop to that, but when they get studied by a social science, the social science can point out that there is actually a belief system at work in each of these separate scientific fields. So, sometimes you got to fight through that too.
All right. Right. Well, Billy, I sure enjoy the show.
Thanks so much for calling in, Ron.
You bet, buddy. Take care. We'll see you.
All right.
Hey, Billy.
There.
Hey, Billy. I wanted to mention something that myself and several other people are going to be in the Jefferson area on the weekend of the 18th of next month, the weekend of the conference, and we're going to be camping at Lake of the Pines, and I would like to invite people out to come out and camp with us and enjoy the nice weather that we'll be having, and good friends and great Bigfoot conversation. I'm just sending an open invite to everybody.
Oh, great.
And they can contact me at my email address, which is gigantotejano@yahoo.com. I think they'll find that on my WebGem site. But I think it would be great. We could get a little research in and have a little fun and sit around the campfire and eat good food. And, camaraderie is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, that would be great. I wish I could make it. I feel bad because I ain't going to be able to make it down there.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good time will be had by all. But I thought I just might mention that, invite people to come on down and have some fun. All
right, very good. DB, I don't want to leave you out. I think I heard you or saw you type something about trying to get to some folks' questions, I believe.
Yeah, a guy named Bigfoot Kid has been dying to know, Luke, whether you think Bigfoot is from this planet.
Yes, Bigfoot is from this planet.
There, we knocked that one out. Looks like we got 2 more minutes. There are a couple other questions. Squatch Biatch 13 wants to know if you think Bigfoot would be like a descendant of Giganto or some type of human hybrid type thing coming down the human family tree.
Well, without evidence and without something to go by, we just don't know. Until we have enough information and evidence documented and studied by scientists, I would be afraid to venture out and say what it is now. In the past, like I said, I've made claims. I have my own personal views, but like I said, from here on out, I'm going to let science speak and decide that for us.
Mm-hmm. Right. And the last question that we had was Dad wanted to know if you could describe that sound that you sometimes hear just before you see a Bigfoot. You said it was a swishing sound. Can you say any more about that?
Yeah, what I've heard, and like I said, I've heard it before on, I was on an investigation up in Oklahoma, and just previous to a visual sighting, I didn't get to see it, but somebody else did. It was this, if there's grass, it's almost like a swish, 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 in that swishing sound, and that's exactly what it sounds like. It's almost like their feet are being held perpendicular to the ground and not, almost like dragging their feet.
Okay, so it has to do with the strange way that they walk.
I think so. But I've heard the sound before. So, and I would use that as an indication.
Folks, we're out of time. I apologize. What'd you say there, DB?
I was just going to say, sounds like we've run out of time. Look, we're going to have Luke back because we had a lot more questions to ask him.
Oh, I know. We sure did. Folks, come back next week. We're going to have a discussion about the East Coast Bigfoot Conference that's taking place this coming weekend. Hope everyone can make it out. We'll probably have some guests like Eric Altman and a few others on so we can get some opinions on the show. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. Luke, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Sure, no problem.
And please, hopefully you will accept an invitation to come back, because I'm sure there's a lot more questions for you.
Absolutely, I would be glad to come back.
Good night, folks.
Awesome.
Okay, good night.
Good night, guys.
Good night.